Lou woke up to the sound of gunshots coming from inside his house. There were panicked screams, sounds of a violent struggle. He sat bolt upright, terrified and drenched in sweat as he heard footsteps getting closer to his room. It had already been the worst year of his life, but things were about to take another turn straight into hell. And this time, Lou would bring a demon back with him. A figure trudged down the hallway toward Lou's bedroom door, having already taken 2 lives that night. He gripped a kitchen knife in his scarred, twitching hand, still dripping with the blood of its recent prey. He chuckled softly to himself, amused at the carnage of it all. Now he was going to add one more body to the pile, Lou's body. Back in his bedroom, Lou could feel his heart rise into his throat. The door creaked open and he saw the figure looming in the shadows. "Jeff?" Lou asked, seeing the figure slowly come into focus. "Is that you?" The figure chuckled again and raised his index finger up to its lipless mouth. "Shh," he said, "go to sleep." Before Lou could get another word in, the figure, presumably his brother Jeff, charged at him brandishing the blade. He couldn't help but notice that his brother's white hoodie was already spattered with blood, and that he'd cut a wide, Joker-like grin into his own face. The awful sight of his brother's ruined face caused him to let his guard down just for a moment. Big mistake. Jeff, who'd seemingly gone utterly insane, had no intention of cutting him any slack. In fact, his only intention was to cut him. Jeff stabbed Lou in the belly, causing a shockwave of pain to rock through his body. Worse than the pain was the sense of betrayal. His own brother, who he'd sacrificed so much for, was genuinely trying to kill him. Lou cried out in pain, sending tears cascading down his cheeks. Jeff stabbed him again and whispered, "I said go to sleep," just like Mom and Dad. In that moment, Lou connected all the dots. The gunshots he'd heard earlier, they were blasts of his father's shotgun, fired off in an unsuccessful attempt to save him and his wife from their youngest son's wrath. Jeff's mother had been the one that first discovered him in the bathroom, mutilating his face into a nightmare we know and fear today. Where she saw fear and disgust, Jeff had seen beauty and potential. His mother would be punished dearly for not seeing what he saw. She ran back to the bedroom and implored her husband to grab the gun, knowing on some primal level that her son was already gone. But they were too slow. By the time 2 shells were loaded into the gun, Jeff was already running across the room, knife at the ready. His father unloaded both barrels, but Jeff, now imbued with a killer instinct, was able to dodge the buckshot. A few minutes later, when Jeff left the room, both of his parents were dead and gutted on the bed. Lou would be next, unless he got extremely lucky, or depending on your perspective, extremely unlucky. He could feel himself getting lightheaded from the pain as Jeff twisted the knife in his guts, cackling like a madman while he did it. Lou tried to hit his brother and throw him off, but Jeff was too strong. He seemed to just ignore the pain. As he prepared to plunge the knife into Lou once more, Lou reached out onto his bedside table and grabbed the first thing his desperate hand could get a hold of. Not a weapon, but a rosary. In sheer panic, he wrapped the rosary around Jeff's neck and began to pull it tight until he could begin to see his brother strain and wheeze. His grip on the blade was getting looser. His pale face was slowly becoming a ruddy purple from the oxygen deprivation. All the while, Jeff slashed at Lou, leaving a crisscross of deep cuts on his face and torso. With the last of his strength, Lou reeled back and delivered a powerful kick to Jeff's gut, knocking his brother off his body. Outside, police cars were converging in the suburb. Jeff and Lou's neighborhood was a quiet place, so gunshots and screams in the middle of the night were certain to catch people's attention. Incidentally, they'd arrived just in time to save Lou's life, but as everyone would later learn, this isn't necessarily a good thing. When Jeff saw the red and blue flashing lights, he decided to cut his losses and split, leaving Lou to bleed to death on the bed. Thoughts of sadness and betrayal swam through Lou's head as he lost consciousness, expecting to never wake back up again. His entire family was already dead or murderously insane. The one question now was which one of these Lou himself would become. How had he gotten here? Life seemed so normal a few months back when they were moving into the neighborhood. It was him, Jeff, and their parents. Lou and his parents had never really seen eye to eye. Jeff was always the golden child. They wrote off Lou early as a future burnout, but he and his brother were thick as thieves. Lou was incredibly protective of Jeff and would happily put everything on the line to keep him out of trouble. He just didn't expect that he'd need to do it so quickly. The incident at the bus stop changed everything. He and Jeff were just standing there, minding their own business, when Randy, Keith, and Troy, a local gang of teenage thugs, rolled onto the scene. What started as a hostile conversation quickly turned into a straight-up shakedown, as the 3 bullies all pulled blades and threatened Jeff and Lou to hand over any money or valuables they had on him. That's when Jeff had his first little snap. Just recalling it terrified Lou. It was the first time his sweet little baby brother didn't seem like himself, like a switch had been flipped in his brain. He gave Randy a brutal punch to the nose before grabbing and snapping his wrist. Jeff then effortlessly disarmed him and used his knife to stab Keith in the arm. It was almost like some outside force had taken over him. Lou had known right then, on some level, that things would never be the same again, but there would still be a lot of pain in store for Lou before Jeff the Killer would truly be born. Randy and Keith needed to go to the hospital. As a result, the authorities soon came knocking on Jeff's door. However, Lou had no intention of letting Jeff go to juvie for this. His brother may have been frightening in his brutality, but he was still acting in self-defense. The bullies had threatened them first. Lou did the only thing he could to protect his brother from his own impulsive actions. He confessed to Jeff's crimes and accepted the charges. Because his parents had always thought so little of him in the first place, they were happy to believe that he was behind the assault and let him take the fall for it. Lou was sentenced to a year in a brutal correctional facility for his trouble, but at least he'd done what he believed was right and kept his brother safe. His time inside wasn't so kind to him. Lou might have been innocent, but many of the teens around him were hardcore criminals in the making. He was dealt regular beatings by the other inmates and the sadistic guards. Night after night, alone in his cell, separated from anybody who cared about him, was beginning to take his toll. Everyone thought he was a monster. Sometimes a tiny voice inside him would whisper, "If they already think you're a monster, why not start playing the part?" In these moments, he'd always fantasize about committing violence, about getting back at the people who hurt him, who put him here, but he'd always suppress the urge. He had to be good. If he became a monster, what would Jeff think of him? Little did he know Jeff was becoming a monster in his own right. He'd been grappling with his own urges to kill, and when Keith, Randy, and Troy showed up for a revenge at the birthday party Jeff was attending, the floodgates finally opened. They'd arrived at the party with guns, fully intent on killing Jeff, but things ended up very differently for the would-be murderers. Giving in to his darkest urges, Jeff slaughtered each and every one of the bullies with increasing ferocity. His mind snapped. He became entirely a different person, with only one directive in mind: kill. However, as almost everyone knows by now, Jeff didn't come out of the conflict unscathed. Due to a mix of fire and chemical burns, he was left horrifically disfigured and barely clinging to life. When Lou heard the news in juvie, he was horrified. He regretted every decision he ever made. If he hadn't taken the fall for Jeff, he wouldn't have been left in harm's way. But there was one silver lining. Before his death, Randy confessed to attacking Jeff and Lou first, in front of several reliable witnesses. Their testimony was at least enough to exonerate Lou, allowing him to return home to his family to support Jeff. When the wrappings around Jeff's face were taken off and his new disfigurements were revealed for the first time, Lou was the first to comfort him, telling him it didn't look too bad, and he got almost slashed to ribbons for his trouble. When Lou woke up in the hospital, he practically looked like Frankenstein's monster, covered in stitches all over his face, arms, and torso where Jeff had been cutting into him. Something felt different, not just physically, but mentally. He felt almost as though there was a different person trapped in his brain with him, watching him, trying to take control of his actions. There was a single nurse in that room, attending to his injuries. He asked her what had happened, and she replied that he'd been in a coma for a few weeks now. His brother had murdered his entire family, and since then he'd been on a nocturnal killing spree across the country. He'd been behind a number of murders and disappearances and had consistently managed to evade capture. "You're very lucky to be alive, young man. I've seen the police sketches," the nurse said. "The little freak looks like a demon. I'd hate to run into him in a dark alley." Demon? Something about that word and the tone she took really got under his skin. He may have been a murderous psychopath, but Jeff was still Lou's brother, and he didn't want anyone bad-mouthing him after what he'd been through. Lou suddenly felt this burning rage inside of him, and a little voice inside his head spoke up again. "Kill her. Kill her now. She deserves to die." That's when Lou noticed a pair of surgical scissors on a table next to his bed. With a sudden surge of almost supernatural strength, he reached over and grabbed the scissors. As the nurse approached to restrain him, he stabbed her through the eye with the scissors, piercing her brain and killing her instantly. He had finally given in to his darkest urge, and it felt good, fantastic even. He hadn't felt so alive in years. He climbed out of bed, feeling like a new person. The voice inside his head told him he needed to run now. If they caught him, there would be no more victims. There would be no more fun. And most importantly of all, if he got caught, he'd never see Jeff again. The now homicidal Lou climbed out of the window of his hospital room and slinked off into the dark, that little voice inside his head encouraging him all the way. He needed to kill again, and he needed to find Jeff. Perhaps he'd kill him. Perhaps they'd kill together. He wasn't sure. But one thing was for certain, he thought with a twisted smile. When he ran into Jeff again, they'd have plenty more in common. Now check out Monster Stalks Your Nightmares, Jeff the Killer Explained, and scary urban legends that will freak you out for more terrifying nightmare fuel.